If you want to publish a book, but you feel stuck, out of time, and you don't know what to do next, then it's time to finish the damn book. Here's your host, Susie Schaefer.
Welcome to this episode of Finish the Damn Book. I'm your host, Susie Schaefer. My guest today is Saffron Gustafson, a passionate advocate for women. Saffron draws from her personal experiences in the U.S. federal prison system. She's a best-selling author of My Name Is Saffron, Voices Silenced, Stifled, and Taken Away. Born in Cottage Grove and raised in Springfield, Oregon, Saffron holds dual degrees in general and social sciences from the University of Oregon and an MBA from Bushnell University. Her professional journey spans the successful management of medical DME clinics across Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. Saffron's courageous firsthand insights into the flaws of the justice system led her to establish Maree Haven, a nonprofit organization dedicated to empowering women transitioning out of incarceration. Maree Haven will be launched in 2026. Welcome, Saffron.
Hi, thank you.
So, Saffron, let's talk about your book. What was emotionally challenging or frustrating for you when you were writing your book? And you actually wrote the book while you were in prison, right?
Yeah, I started to. So when I was in prison, I'm like, this is the most insane experience someone could go through, in my perspective. So I'm like, I've got to start writing down notes because this is crazy and it's emotionally traumatizing, and I'm probably going to end up blocking a lot of it out. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I need to tell this story because it's crazy. And I wanted to tell it like from the emotions of it actually happening. So all through it, I took notes probably daily. I mean, I'm sure there were days where I didn't write anything down, but I would take little notes. But what I did do is the first chapter, although at this point in the book, it's heavily been edited and changed around, but so not word for word, but basically the first chapter I literally wrote the first 3 weeks I was in federal prison. They threw me in solitary confinement. And yeah,
That's insane.
Totally insane. Nobody would tell me anything. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know why I was in there. I didn't know when I was going to be getting out. That is not what I expected. Not that I really expected anything. How do you expect what federal prison's going to be like? I mean, I had no idea. No reference there. But I did ask for a pencil and some paper. And so I was given a few pieces of paper and a bendable pencil that was very, very hard to write with because it was bendable. They didn't want you to use it for a weapon, especially against yourself, since you were in solitary. People would go a little crazy, understandably. And so it was a bendable pencil, and it was so hard to write with. It was ridiculous, but I had nothing else to do. So the first chapter of the book I wrote within the first 3 weeks of me being in federal prison. Yeah. So that's kind of, a different story right there.
Did you actually keep those handwritten pages?
Yep, I still have them. All through writing the book, even though I already used the notes and already, had the manuscript, when we were doing the editing, I'd still go back to my handwritten notes from prison in lots of different pieces because it wasn't like I had a professional notebook with a nice pen that I kept them all organized. It was, whatever I was given or I could find. So a little scrap of paper here, a little, piece of a notebook here that somebody had left over that had 5 pages left in it or something. I had all these stacks of all these different types of pieces of paper that had writings on. And so even through the editing process, I would go back and shuffle through, what I could have that was not necessarily organized and try to find, I would remember like, oh, I wrote something like this down. I want to get that true feeling. I want to get that true what was going on during that time, and I would shuffle through my little pieces of paper and notes and go find it, even through the editing process when the manuscript was already written, but just to make sure I was really getting that true, authentic experience of whatever that scene was, of what was going on. So, yeah.
That's amazing. And I love that you journaled your way through your time of incarceration. How long were you in prison total?
So I was sentenced to 22 months in federal prison, Dublin, California, the Dublin FCI. I was sentenced to the camp part of it. Not that that really matters because it was federal prison. It was horrible. But that camp basically just means there's usually not extreme violent people in there. There still is some violent backgrounds in there, but probably not a serial murder or something like that. That's pretty much, in my experience, that's all that camp meant, was that there was not like a serial murder in there. But so I was sentenced to 22 months. And due to COVID, I ended up spending, it was 7 months in the federal prison in Dublin. And then although I was not sentenced to go to a halfway house, the federal government wanted to keep me on federal grounds and not just let me go to home confinement, which I was told was going to happen, but that did not happen. And I spent another 8 months in a federal reentry location, which I dubbed the crack house because it was absolutely horrible. It was actually worse than the prison. The prison was really bad. As far as safety, it was worse. And then I was released so that was 18 months altogether. And I was released from that due to a CARES Act that the government had pushed through. I had heard about it when I was in federal prison, but I was like, is that ever actually going to take place? It did, shockingly. And it was for nonviolent, low offense, never been in trouble before type people who had already served a certain amount of time. And if they had done a lot of work within the prison system, which I did, you were granted an early release. And so I was released after 18 months. And then I was sentenced to probation of 3 years. And I just ended that.
Well, congratulations on
Right.
ending that. Now,
Right. Oh my gosh.
yeah, I mean, that's a big milestone because you carry this with you. And as you know, it's difficult because now you have to rebuild your career. So, kind of going back to the book, and I don't want to do the spoiler alert as to how did you end up in prison, because I want people to read the book. But while you were going through the process of publishing the book, it was already, your manuscript was edited, we were working through it. Did you have any, or even going back to when you were writing it in prison, did you have any big aha moments or epiphanies that happened during that process?
Well, when I was writing the book, I had never written a book. I always enjoyed writing. I was actually always really good at it, but I had no official training in writing for book purposes, which is a whole different thing. My only experience was I wrote a thesis in grad school, and that was peer published, peer reviewed published, but not the same thing. Nope. So my biggest aha moment, I mean, there was a lot of them, but when I was writing it, was working with my editor. And so I had written the manuscript, and I was like, okay, book's done. I mean, we'll correct some sentences, some grammar, but it's done and ready to go. Wow, that was a lot of work. Whew. And little did I know there was so much more to it, like insane. It just started. Like the book process just started. I was far from done. I mean, it was like, now we're going to tear it up and switch it around and do everything with it, which I had no idea actually happened. And so I learned that I had written it, which was a good thing for my story, and it should have been written this way for the manuscript, but I wrote it in a summary form. And I knew nothing about summary and scene. And so we had to go back and change everything, into scenes. And so you had to dissect each little thing and go back and really put in the emotions and the feelings so that the reader could actually feel what you were feeling in that moment, which is, all the senses that we have. And I did not, I was like in writing, I did not realize that. I was like, I got it down from A to Z. Here is my story, and it is good. There you go. And it was okay. Here's another year of me putting in unbelievable amount of hours. I sectioned off 3 to 4 days a week, and that's literally all I did for maybe anywhere from 8 to 12 hours, depending on what time I had per day. So for a year, I mean, I made this like a career. Like, this is my job, and not getting paid for it yet, but this is my job. And I dedicated that time to that. And for that a whole year, working with my editor, redlining it, going back through and really sectioning off all these summaries and putting it into a scene. And that was a big epiphany for me in writing. And I'm really grateful for that learning experience because I wanted to become a better writer. And I'm like, oh, this is a whole different, since I wasn't ever formally trained, I didn't realize that. And I thought I had plenty of scene in my summary.
Yeah.
But I had none.
And we call that a show versus tell in the publishing world. And so
Yeah.
I was really excited to see that you had worked with an editor and that you had really had that kind of dedication to the writing process, because this is what makes your story so compelling and so readable for people, because they can picture what it was like, what you were going through during those moments. So I just love that. So let's talk a little bit about by the way, yeah, you've already made it to bestseller. Like, you just launched your book and you've made it to bestseller. So would you like to share anything about what that feels like?
Well, it's really exciting because I have been mentally prepared that nobody would even recognize it. I did this more for wanting to get for awareness and getting the information out for the nonprofit and for these women, and also a healing process for myself. People always ask me when they find out about the story and what really happened. They're like, oh my gosh, you need like counseling, or I mean, this is so traumatic and so horrible. And I'm like, oh no, I wrote a book. That has been my counseling. And so I looked at it that way, and I hope for the best. And I was really hoping people would notice it. And I am pleasantly surprised. I mean, it's only been out for, don't quote me on the exact date, but I think like 3 weeks. And it's somewhere right in there. And it's already getting recognition. So that gives me a lot of encouragement to, for the future of getting much more awareness and more recognition for what the story is about, and in helping women coming out of the system. But yeah, it feels really good because it's just so, it's your little baby. You worked so hard in putting this together, just day in and day out, every spare moment I had for multiple years, for I think about 2.5 to 3 years, literally every free moment I had. I mean, people would be like, oh, let's go to dinner or something like that. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm writing. All the time. Like, I would not go to anything. I'm like, no, I have to get this done. So it's exciting that it's being recognized just because of, one, what the story is about and what it's for and the purpose of it, but also just all that work.
Yeah.
And it's actually getting seen is pretty cool. I mean, it feels good. Yeah.
Good.
It's
Now,
like, oh.
right? Yeah. Now, you also told me a little story while we were working on your book about the women that you were incarcerated with, and that they actually asked you to publish this book. You are a blonde, very beautiful white woman, and
very white. Yes.
And as we know, there are generally, because of the statistics, many brown women or ethnic women in the prison system. What was that like, being the one that stood out? And what did those women ask you about your book?
Yeah. So initially, when I first got to prison, I did get some warm reception. Don't get me wrong, it's in the story. I met some really wonderful women just right off the bat. They were like, I want to help you. Oh my gosh, you're going to get killed in here. Let me help you. They could see that. Yeah, no, I know. And I was like, oh my God, I was like a deer caught in headlights. So anyways, I met some really, really nice, caring women right in the beginning that didn't need to be nice to me. And they were, just because they could see I needed help and they wanted to help me. And I'll always be super appreciative of that. but it took a minute for a lot of the women, and I understand, to warm up to me because I am not physically what they would probably call a friend. And once they got to know me, because I found, at least in my experience in federal prison, it's not as far as judgment goes, why you're there, nobody really cares, because it's like everyone has a story, and it's like we all just went through hell, and everyone understands that your life just got torn up. No matter what that life was, it got torn up, and you just went through hell, and now we're in hell together. So it was a little bit of camaraderie with that. And I ended up meeting some really, really great women, one in particular that was bilingual, and English was her second language, but spoke it very well, and was a very successful businesswoman, and beautiful, and just had a lot of respect, and within the majority of the community of the women in the camp that I was in. And she came to me one day and she was like, I heard I always see you writing, and I heard that you can write pretty well, and that, you're educated. And I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of, right? And she was like, hey, I want to talk to you about what I'm doing, and I'm wondering if you could help me. And so what she was doing is she was trying to help all these women of different ethnic backgrounds, different languages, that sort of thing, that English was not their primary language. Some of them did not speak any English, and, enough to get by, of course, but like, you couldn't hold like just a, hey, how you doing type conversation. And so she's like, I'm trying to help them with their legal lawyers. No one is willing to help them, and they have to do it in English. And I know it pretty well, but it sure would be helpful if you could help. And I'm like, well, absolutely. So she would translate. So I'd meet up with individual women, and I would just be like, tell me your story. And so she would translate what they were saying to English for me, and then I would write down a legal paper to the judge for them. And so that word kind of got around that I was willing to help, and that I, although very white, was actually super non-judgmental, and I wanted to help if I could. I'm like, well, this is what I can do. I don't know that I can help, but if I can, I'm more than willing to. So that really helped with the relationship with a lot of the women within the community that I was in, and just gaining their trust, that I was somebody that they probably could trust a little bit, opposed to just being like,
Did you have any spiritual or faith type of experiences while you were in prison?
Well, yeah. So it was a very negative place, I can't lie. And so that's really hard. I usually do, a lot of meditation, a lot of, prayer, what have you. I'm really intuitive. And so I'm able to, tap into stuff. I could not do that there, because the negativity, you could physically feel it. I mean, it was like you could cut the negativity with a knife, like in the air. Literally, I'm not even joking. It was so bad. And so we would always be like, I wonder how many, like, negative energies are here, because it was there, very, very prevalent. I mean, it was there in human form. So you can imagine in, energy wise, it was not a good place. And so I did my best, though, to try to tap into that and try to listen to my intuition, and, try to still meditate, try to still pray, try to still get, in that mode, although it was very, very difficult to do in such a negative environment. And I tried to listen to that as much as I could. And it really helped me with my writing, because there were so many days where I'm just like, why am I doing this? This is so stupid. This is so horrible. Why am I writing this down? Like, I don't want to remember this. And I would get a very, very strong feeling of, no, yes, you do. And write this down. Like, I mean, just coming in, and I take that from, it was a very positive, like, you need to do this because you're not doing it just for yourself. You need to do this because you're going to be getting this information out, and it's not necessarily for you, it's for other women. And I was just like, oh God, fine. Like, I'll write this horrible thing down once again. Like, every day there was just like horribleness. And I remember one time in particular, I was sitting on the top. We had these metal bunk beds, and they're called like cookie sheets, because that's what you were on, just literally a metal slab. And I was sitting on the top, and it was just dank and dark and just gross and just smells, and it's just nasty. Like, it's just so gross, right? And I got a really strong feeling to write down what that feeling was,
Mm.
not to forget it. Like, where you're at right now, what does the lighting look like? What does it smell like? What does it feel like? And so I did. And that was a huge theme throughout my book. I didn't know that because I wrote it obviously in summary first. But that was going back to those type of notes really helped get that emotion infused into it. So I felt like I was not necessarily at the time, it's in hindsight. I really feel like I was, divinely guided through it and helping me to take the proper notes and helping me to record the proper things that I was going to need, that I didn't know I needed, that I was going to need to now get those scenes into that book. So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like I was definitely spiritually guided and tapping into that
Well,
as best I could.
yeah, you definitely use your intuition, which is amazing because a lot of people aren't tapped into that intuition. I really feel like that was the thing that helped you with writing and finishing your book. But then also, you used your intuition with how you support women in establishing Maree Haven, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about what that is and what's the purpose behind that.
Absolutely. So the biggest thing that I seen happen, I wanted to help, right? But I'm like, what is that help? You know? And the biggest thing that I seen happening, and this is through my experience through the prison system and then also through the reentry part of it, which I call the crack house. They call it a reentry. That's a really nice word. And I don't think it deserves a nice word like that. But the reentry and then also through probation, because that's really horrible and limits you in itself. So I try to use all of that in finding, okay, what with my experience, now that I see what the system does, how in the world can I help? Because I want to help. And the biggest thing that I seen was, well, there's quite a few things, but in getting a coming out of the system is actually getting a decent, good job. I seen time and time again, it was just most of the job placements that they were able to get is just an extension of prison, low pay, abuse, treated horribly because you're, a felon or have a criminal background, just not giving a decent chance to get back on your feet. And so what happens with that is then with the low pay, they're not able to get good housing. And then it's just a cycle of them not even because they want to, but turning back and to the people and the communities that kind of got them in prison in the first
Right.
place, because that they needed to have some type of resource. Anyone does that. It's like it's human nature. You're like, okay, I'm trying, but I'm not able to do it. So I have to go back to whatever that is so that I can survive. And then it just is a loophole. And then they get drawn right back into it and they get thrown back into prison. And it's like they're not even, trying to or wanting to. It's just they're trying to survive and like nothing is helping. So I'm like, when I seen that over and over again, I'm like, for the nonprofit, there's many very important things, but the number one thing is for women, it's very important that they are able to get a good job that is not abusive, that they don't have to depend on anyone else for their living arrangement, that they can still buy food, they can still pay rent in a decent place, not another crack house, like where they're not subjected to just more criminal activity that they're going to get thrown back into. So that's the number one thing that I'm working on with the nonprofit is being able to be a resource to help them get decent jobs that they can grow in, that they can actually get a resume put together. A lot of these women, there's no such thing as a resume. They don't anything that they had worked on, they can't use in a resume. No one's ever helped them have a resume. I mean, so for them to now progress and go, they're out of the system and they're wanting to even get a job as something that a lot of people might think is maybe not so significant would be very significant if they could get that because it's safe and it pays decent. And so if I can help with that, and then also with housing, making sure at least for a couple years that they're in a very safe environment that they can get back on their feet. Because in my experience, what I'm seeing is you need a couple years. You need a couple years of being protected, you're safe, you're able to save some money, you're able to just get things back on track and you're in the right line of, so you can now move forward. And transportation too. I mean, the biggest thing I seen, the third biggest thing was they don't have transportation. So even if they got a good job, how do they get there? You know, and um it really is it's a problem. And so there again, I seen women counting on individuals to help them get maybe to work that were not good influences, that were the same individuals that probably helped them get into prison in the first place. And there again, you fall back into that cycle, and they're trying to do good. So they just have limited resources. And I'm lucky because I lost everything. I've met some people with white collar crimes, which is what mine would be considered, and they still had a house, they still had some money, they lost a lot, but they still had some things. That was not my case. Literally everything. My house got taken away, all my money, everything gone. So when I say I'm starting from scratch and I can relate somewhat to what these women are going through, I really mean that. I didn't have any money left. I mean, not even $1. I am not exaggerating. I don't have a house. My house got taken away. Like, you go down the list, it's gone. And I luckily have family that was willing to help me. So that's this nonprofit is kind of like that representation of what I experienced with having family help me. That's what this nonprofit, you know, let's help these women so that they have a couple years to get back on their feet and get, be able to move forward if that's what they want to do.
Right.
And so I'm very passionate about that.
That's awesome. I just think it's so great because you are the epitome of cause publishing, where you tell your story, you write a book, you support a mission or purpose or cause. I just think that's awesome. So good for you. I think that you're going to have a lot of success coming up. So, and you, as you know, I love to pull some cards. So what do you think if we pull some cards?
I'll do it.
Yeah. Do you want it to be something that for our listeners? Do you want to ask a question for yourself? Yeah, it's up to you.
Gosh, could we do one of both for the listeners and maybe for the nonprofit?
Let's do one for the listeners and one for the nonprofit. Okay. So first, let's ask, what do our listeners need to know right now? Okay. So let's just pull a card for them. Oh, I love this so much. So the card is a 20. So 2 + 0 reduces to a 2. That's the start of a new cycle. Really, ones are the beginning, but 2 is like, okay, I feel like ready to start the new cycle. And the card is imagine. So you can see this card is blue. Blue is throat chakra. So when you're setting your intentions and you're imagining, what would life be if I had X, Y, and Z? Or wouldn't it be cool if this happened for me? When you're, thinking about those things, make sure that you write them down, journal them, just like Saffron did with her book, journal them. But then blue, throat chakra, speak them into existence. This is how we harness the energy. And you can see she's holding the moon on a string. So don't let yourself be, don't use the bumpers on the bowling alley, like let yourself dream big and say, what if I had these things? What if I was able to accomplish this? Many people would say a person in your position would never have been able to write and publish a book. So this is saying, if Saffron can do it, you can do it. Just imagine, the sky is the limit. So let's get a card for you and Maree Haven. Okay, this is a 21 card, so that's 3. So again, new cycles, new beginnings, right? That you're already moving in the right direction, and the card is clean it up. So you can see the elk has a little broom. What that tells me is that sometimes we have to remember to clean up our energetic footprint. And so it means that, okay, when we do kind of go into those situations where we think, I don't know if I can do this, right? Those are worthiness wounds. So when you pick that up and you heal those wounds, you are able to accomplish anything. So sometimes we just have to clean up our energy a little bit. Sometimes it also means we have to clean our house and declutter and let things go, right? Things that are no longer serving us. So it's just saying you're on the right track. You're doing a great job. You just need to maybe clean up your energy just a little bit. So those are our cards, one for the collective and one for you. I think that's great. I think, thank you, universe. It's good advice. So yeah. So how can people find you and work with you?
Yeah, so they can go to my website, which is the name of the book, My Name Is Saffron.com. You can contact me there. And then my email, you can contact me through email, which is saffron@mynameissaffron.com. You can email me there as well. Absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today and sharing part of your story. I encourage everybody to go to Amazon, buy Saffron's book. You will be amazed. I found even when I was looking through, when we were in the kind of the layout phase, I was finding myself captivated by parts of your story. And while I didn't read the whole thing front to cover right initially, I was like so enthralled in what was happening in some of those chapters that I'd found myself just immersed in it. So I highly recommend that you buy this book, read it. It's available in paperback, hardcover, and also on ebook. So do that because we want to support Saffron and her business, Maree Haven. She also is working on a couture fashion line, which is very exciting. So connect with her and follow her and, get that movement going because I think it's really important to support women who have been incarcerated.
Absolutely. It really is.
Yes. Well, thanks for being here.
Thank you. I so appreciate it.
And if you found this interesting, I encourage you to join me for the next episode and be sure to subscribe. Every week, one lucky listener who subscribes and posts a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes will be entered into a drawing for the grand prize, a private VIP day with me, valued at $25,000. So be sure to subscribe and post a review. Until then, keep on writing so you can finish the damn book. We'll see you next time.
So that's it for today's episode of Finish the Damn Book. Head on over to wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe to the show. One lucky listener every single week that posts a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes will win a chance in the grand prize drawing to win a $25,000 value private VIP day with Susie Schaefer herself. Head on over to finishthedamnbookpodcast.com and pick up a free copy of Susie's gift. And join us on the next episode.